The storm rolled across the plains in thick gray sheets, the kind that erased the horizon and turned the world into a blur of wind and dust. She fought through it, clutching her thin coat tight around her, boots slipping on the muddy path as she hurried toward the old community center where she'd been tutoring children for the last 3 months. The school had closed long ago, funding dried up, but she kept teaching anyway, because the kids needed her and teaching was all she had left. No home, no family. Barely enough money for food, and now, with the storm swallowing the road behind her, she wondered how many more nights she could survive like this. Inside the center, the lantern light glowed weakly, flickering as the wind rattled the walls. Her small class waited for her, 4 siblings whose mother worked nights, a shy girl who rarely spoke, and 2 boys who reminded her painfully of brothers she once had to raise on her own. Today, though, 2 seats were empty, the seats that belonged to the Turner boys, the wealthy rancher's sons. They were never late, and they never missed a lesson. Just as worry began to gnaw at her, the heavy wooden door swung open, slamming against the wall, and the tall silhouette of the richest and loneliest man in the county stepped inside. Jesse Turner filled the doorway like a storm of his own, broad-shouldered, dust-covered, and sharp-eyed, with both of his boys clinging to him tightly. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days, but when his gaze landed on the poor teacher kneeling beside her students, something softened in his face. Relief, respect, maybe something deeper. "The road washed out," he said, voice low and rough with worry. "I wasn't letting them ride through it alone." She hurried toward the boys, brushing mud from their jackets, checking their hands for scratches, her touch gentle but quick. Jesse watched her with an intensity that made her heart stumble. Most men of his wealth looked right through her. Jesse never had. As the storm howled outside, rattling the shingles, the children gathered around the lantern and she began her lesson, her voice calm despite the growling wind. Jesse stood in the back at first, arms crossed, his presence solid and quiet. But she felt his gaze on her with every word she spoke. How she encouraged each child, how she listened, how she brought peace to a room filled with fear. When one of his sons grew restless, she placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and the boy instantly relaxed. Jesse's eyes lingered on that moment, something unspoken gathering behind them. When the lesson ended and the storm only worsened, she began gathering supplies, preparing to sleep on the floor like she often did when the weather turned cruel. Jesse watched her spread blankets for the children, watched her tend to kids who weren't hers, watched her ignore her own trembling hands. It twisted something inside him, something old, something aching. After the other children drifted to sleep, he walked toward her with slow, measured steps. She looked up, surprised to find him so close. "You can't stay here tonight," he said quietly. "This building won't hold if the winds get stronger." She nodded, but her eyes fell to the floor. "I don't have anywhere else to go." Jesse took a breath, the kind a man takes when he's about to step off a cliff he's been standing on for years. "I know," he said, "that's why I'm here." She lifted her gaze, confused, fragile hope flickering across her face. He shifted his weight, removing his hat, holding it in one hand like he was approaching something sacred. "My boys, they need someone patient, someone warm, someone who sees them." His voice cracked ever so slightly. "And I need someone who can remind me what a home feels like." Her heart pounded, tears burning behind her eyes, but she forced her voice steady. "Jesse, what are you saying?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, the worn coat, the tired eyes, the strength she carried despite everything life had stolen from her. And with the storm screaming outside and his sons asleep at their feet, the richest man in the county spoke the most vulnerable words of his life. "Come to my ranch, marry me if it feels right or don't. But let me give you shelter, let me give you safety. I need a mother for my sons, and you need a place where someone cares whether you make it through the night." The words hung between them like suspended breath, impossible and enormous. She stared at him, unable to speak at first, because men didn't offer things like this, not to women like her, not to teachers who slept on floors and stitched their coats 3 times over. Jesse Turner could have married anyone in the county. Wealthy widows, ambitious daughters, women with polished manners and spotless reputations. Yet here he was offering his home, his sons, his life to her. "Jesse," she whispered, her voice barely holding together, "you don't even know me." He shook his head. "I know enough. I've seen how my boys change around you, how you give more than you ever take, how you keep going even when the world gives you nothing." His jaw tight. "I've watched you for months and never once saw you put yourself first." She sank onto the nearest chair, overwhelmed, her hands trembling in her lap. "I can't just marry a man out of nowhere." He knelt in front of her, not touching her, just bringing himself to her level. "I'm not asking you to give me an answer tonight or tomorrow or even this month." His voice softened to something fragile, something human beneath all that power. "I'm asking you to come with me because this place," he glanced around the drafty room, the sagging roof, "is going to collapse in this storm, and I can't leave you here to freeze." She swallowed hard, the truth sinking in like cold water. She did need shelter, but that wasn't the part that scared her. The part that terrified her was how gentle he was being when he had the power to command. Lightning split the sky outside, illuminating the room with harsh white light. She could feel her fear rise again, of storms, of uncertainty, of making the wrong choice. Jesse noticed the way she flinched and stood, extending a hand. Let me take you somewhere safe. Nothing else has to be decided tonight. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His grip was warm, steady, not possessive but supportive. He led her toward the doorway where his two boys slept curled together on a blanket. One of them stirred, rubbing his eyes. "Pa, we going home?" Jessie brushed the boy's hair back. "Yeah, buddy, all of us." The word us landed in her chest like a soft, unexpected weight. She had spent so long being no one's anything, no one's daughter, no one's sister, no one's priority. But the way the boy looked at her, sleepy and trusting, stirred something she'd locked away years ago. She helped Jessie lift the children, bundling them into coats, tightening scarves. Brushing back tears when the youngest said, "Teacher, will you come too?" She froze. The question was innocent, hopeful, and it cracked her heart wide open. Jessie watched her carefully, not pushing her for an answer, but praying silently all the same. When the four of them stepped out into the storm, Jessie shielded the children with his coat, and without thinking she stepped closer, taking half the weight of the wind so it wouldn't hit the boys as hard. Jessie saw it, saw how naturally she moved to protect them, and something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not yet, something deeper. Something that felt like family trying to form itself out of broken pieces. As they reached the wagon, Jessie helped her climb inside, then tucked a heavy blanket around her legs. "You'll be warm," he murmured, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. She didn't pull away, and when he climbed up beside her, the horses stamping nervously in the mud, he looked at her with a mixture of hope and quiet fear. "Whatever this becomes," he said, "we'll face it together." Wagon lurched forward through the mud, wheels groaning under the weight of wind and rain. She held the blanket close, but it wasn't the cold making her shiver, it was the reality of what she just stepped into. Jesse Turner, a man known across 3 counties for his stoic nature and iron will, kept glancing at her as though afraid she might disappear into the storm. His sons slept beneath the heavy coats piled around them, their small breaths soft and steady. For the first time in years she wasn't alone, but the fear of hopping, of wanting this too much, gnawed at her. "Jesse," she said quietly, "what if people talk? What if they think I'm after your money?" Jesse tightened his grip on the reins, jaw firm. "People talk no matter what you do, let them, I know who you are." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the sharp edges of his profile. He wasn't a handsome man in the polished, gentlemanly way, he was handsome in the way mountains were, solid, immovable, weathered by storms but never broken by them. "I'm not offering charity," he added, voice low. "I'm offering partnership, safety, a chance for something better for all of us." She looked down at the sleeping boys, their small hands curled against the blankets. They trusted her without hesitation. Children always saw truth faster than grown men. The thought warmed her enough to speak the worry she'd been hiding. "I've never been anyone's mother," Jesse's gaze softened. "Love them, that's all they need." The time the wagon reached the sprawling Turner ranch, the worst of the storm had settled into a steady, icy downpour. The lanterns on the porch flickered through the rain, casting long golden lines across the muddy yard. Jesse jumped down first, lifting the boys into his arms one by one, carrying them inside with practiced ease. When he turned back to her, he didn't offer a hand like a polite stranger. Instead, he lifted her gently, steadying her against the wind as if she were the most important burden he'd ever carried. "Careful," he murmured, his breath warm near her ear. "My porch gets slick when it rains." She felt heat rise in her cheeks despite the freezing air. Inside, the ranch house glowed with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. A large stone fireplace crackled at the far end of the room, golden light dancing across polished wood floors and shelves filled with books and toys and the lived-in signs of family. It didn't look like the home of a rich cowboy trying to impress the world. It looked like a place built for children, built for memories, built for laughter. "This is your home," she whispered, almost afraid to touch anything. Jesse nodded, removing his wet coat. "Ours," he corrected quietly. The word struck her harder than the wind had. "Ours, not mine, not yours, ours." He led her to the fire, his movements gentle, careful not to overwhelm her. She sat down on the soft rug, letting the heat thaw the chill in her bones. Jesse draped another blanket around her shoulders, his fingers brushing her collarbone by accident, an innocent touch that sent a tremor through her. "You can have the guest room tonight," he said, clearing his throat. "It's warm, clean, and safe." She looked up at him, meeting eyes filled with sincerity and something she wasn't ready to name. "Why are you